All right, this is Kinetic Blue. I'm Catherine Farrant. Thanks so much for joining for our third episode. I'm super excited to be unpacking my mastermind. There's always kind of like a flurry of people to join, and it's specifically after I chat with people one-to-one, because so many of us, especially as moms and as fathers, we're kind of like feeling our way through things as we parent and as we grow spiritually and or in any which way that we grow through our work and in our families and in our marriages. And I felt like the mastermind just came out of me in 2020. I was like, I have to show people all these things that I've uncovered, because I was dealing one-to-one with a lot of you around certain issues. So someone would come and say their gut health was out of whack, and someone would come and say that they had a very traumatic time around a certain thing that happened to them, specifically a birth in the case of women, or some kind of life event in the case of a man, like an alopecia where the hair thins and falls out, which could be a result of diet or a number of other things. But these things cause stress and they cause strain, and we always look for an answer. Or someone would come to me with heavy metal toxicity, with a poisoning in the body, with high levels of what I call toxic load. So the body is designed to be an extremely efficient and effective detox machine. Naturally, God has designed us that we filter out anything that we don't need and we get rid of it by way of waste products, sweating, urine, feces. These are the ways that we get stuff that we don't need out of our body. In extreme cases, the purging, the body can vomit up anything that it doesn't need. But what we don't understand is that slowly but surely, after being exposed to foods that have herbicides and pesticides, parabens, sulfates, and other chemicals in our shampoos, conditioners, and so on, that our level of toxic load creeps up slowly but surely. I found out, I can't remember what age I was. My third son wasn't born, so it was 35, 36, or something like that. That I had a very high levels of mercury in my body. And in actual fact, mercury is one of the heavy metals that transfers from the mother's womb through to the child. So if we had ancestors that had amalgam or mercury fillings and they had mercury leach into the body, that transference can occur. So you can imagine how a young child, by way of certain experiences, the environment in which they're brought up in, the exposure of the mums to things like painting the nursery or, polishing vinyl floors or whatever while she's pregnant, that some babies can be born with a fairly high toxic load. Now, in many cases, we just let the glory of God, the way the body is, push those toxins out and through, yeah? But when we get sluggish and when they bog us down and there's that tipping point, we have to take that into our own hands. So a lot of people would come with an inability to heal. And that happened to me. I had a big kind of like a mosquito bite that kind of went into an open wound on the back of my calf, and I could not heal this thing, come hell or high water, no matter what. I was, all the natural remedies that I promote, all the things that I talked about, rife medicine, frequency work, everything. And I couldn't get this thing to heal. And eventually I discovered I had these very high levels of mercury in the body. Now, when your toxic load is extremely high, your body will focus on fixing that issue, and little mundane things like healing a mozzie bite or getting better from a cold or having a strong immune system are kind of a little bit of a not so much of a concern when there's high levels of toxic load. So you will see the body becoming sluggish, being less resilient, and finding it difficult to heal or bounce back from things. Sometimes these people are overly anxious. They're always sick. If there's a bug going around, they'll always get it. When they get something, they can't kick it. It becomes viral. It becomes bronchial. It goes into the chest. It goes into the throat, and so on and so on. And so that is what we call toxic load. My point is that what I quickly discovered after years and years and years was that you can't just fix one thing and send that person on their way. That is why my mastermind is called the 3 Pillars Mastermind, because the pillar of gut health, toxic load, and trauma load, they fit equally together to hold up the mantle of health above our lives, yeah? And I would go so far as to say spiritual health would be the 4th pillar. And I do what's called the 4th quarter in my mastermind, where we delve into more mature things once we've understood the way the body works from a biological and scientific point of view. And we've gone through these 3 pillars in depth. Because if you have a child that's struggling with a poor gut, but you don't assess their stress or their trauma or their pain or the experiences that they might be holding onto, and you don't also look at the environment in which they live and sleep, you can fix that gut, but you will fall straight back to square one when those other factors come into play. And so my mastermind is a journey. And I remember starting it on the 9th of January last year. I've never been so scared in my entire life. I've never been so nervous in my entire life. Taking on these women, there were 10 of them. And ironically enough, I want to say maybe 5 and men, 1 man, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 men. I'll tell the story of the 3. 5 completed the mastermind, 4 completed the mastermind, and all paid. 1 didn't ever arrive, and I think even though it was paid, there is that type of a person that wants the solution so desperately that you put your money down and you pay for your personal trainer, but you never actually go to the class. Do you know what I mean? But in a way, you feel like you've got a personal trainer. Do you understand the thinking behind that? The other one, again, kind of made a commitment, but not in so much that there would have been any change on their part whatsoever, but could tell people that they were doing this and this is what they were learning and so on and so on. I could hand on my heart say that it would be very difficult for that person to have come away with much knowledge, because it takes 2 to tango. There has to be a commitment of wanting to learn, and there has to be a hunger. And that's what happened to me around the Word of God. And since I got baptized, there became this absolute hunger for the Bible. Like, I can't stop reading the Bible, and neither can my children, who watch me being baptized and who are only 8 and 10 years old. The little one is sleeping by this time, but they have this craving. It's every night, please read more, read more, read more. Because once you have that like understanding of what you want to learn, and there's so much knowledge for you to grab, you just want to grab it. So out of the 10, 3 didn't have that hunger, and it's very difficult to learn. It's very difficult to do a degree like I did, going through mathematics and statistics at an honors degree university level, where mathematics eventually became a language. That's how complicated it became. I remember my first year at university, I was getting like 10, 12, 15% in my exams. But I was so proud of myself, because like how I even understand 15% of the stuff is beyond me. This is amazing. And the bell curve, the class was, I think the best performer was getting like 28% or something. So 15 was, fairly good. But unless you have that hunger and that desire, like for starting your own business, like for learning the Word of God, like for learning another language, it will always be very, very difficult. But for those that made their way through, I saw extreme change. And I got so much joy from that. I can't begin to tell you. And these men and women, I just put my hand on my heart to them and I say, well done. They showed up every single Monday for an hour and taught themselves through me everything they wanted to know about their lives and how they could make change. And there was no stone left unturned for these people. And the changes, the shackles that were broken, the changes in character, the breakthroughs, the understandings, the growth, it was really, really beautiful to witness. And that's what I hope to do again in 2024. The structure and the format will be a little bit different, but and also I would say, and I wrote this to a client yesterday, and I'm not sure if it was the right thing to say, but I said, look, I've been born again now. Like I'm a Christian, and I'm like really, this is the way I'm going. So I would say that a lot of it will be overlaid with biblical scripture. If you want to learn the Word of God, or if you're confused about Jesus, or if you want to understand how all these things about natural living and toxic load and trauma and the body and sun and energy and food and healing and vibration and emotion are biblical, then that's what I'm hoping to show. So even if you weren't a Christian and you wanted to come along and be like, oh, that's really interesting to me, how those things are tied up, how there are principles and laws of money, how there are ways in which I can succeed that are principles of the universe. I teach this in my mastermind. Why are schools not teaching our children the laws of the universe, the simple laws of the universe, like attracts like, gravity, all those kind of things? If we understood the simple laws of the universe, we would make life so much easier. Money making would be so much easier. Getting the things you desire, like manifestation, etc., would be so much easier. But we are not taught these laws and principles, and a lot of them are biblical. So not all, but a lot. So I do want to move through all of that. I'm going to give you a quick flavor of each of the 3 quarters. And if you think this is something for you, and if you're on the waiting list and you're still listening to this and going, yes, 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 then you can email hello@thekineticblueprint.com. I'll put the email address below, and you can say, yeah, sign me up, or what on earth is this, or ask any question that you'd like to know. So in the 12 weeks of gut health, we tackle the way that the body works in symphony as a myriad of hormones, not just what happens in the gut. So many people come to me and be like, oh, I've been taking probiotics for 3 months, but I still feel sick. oh this, oh that, oh the next thing. You have to understand that your body is a symphony. It is an absolute miracle the way in which it works. And a lot of the times allopathic medicine or modern medicine gives us small solutions for symptoms that disrupt that symphony and take us out of harmony, which is scientifically is called homeostasis. So we learn about the science of homeostasis, and we learn about how we can be kicked out of homeostasis from a drug, from a pill, from a tablet, from something as simple as Panadol, but also from something that we think, believe, an emotion, a reaction, etc. We understand the power of a body that is resilient enough to bring itself back to homeostasis as often as is needed. No, there is no one on this earth walking around continuously in homeostasis. We get into fight or flight, we get into rest or digest, we flit in and out. There are actually 3 states. The third state is what's called completely and utterly detached. It's a state whereby it's a very difficult state for humans to be in, but they get so strung out and so pushed beyond the measure of fight or flight, living in pure survival mode, that they completely detach and shut down. And that's an extremely dangerous place to be for people. People can't get out of bed. There becomes chronic depression, and a number of ailments for which every doctor always has a name will appear. But there is a way out. There's a way to understand how to make your body resilient using all the things that I teach. None of it is rocket science. Most of it is biblical, and it is simple, simple things. There are no products. There are no pills. There are no, you have to wake up at this time. You have to eat this at this time. It is simply an understanding of your body, how to nourish it, how to nurture it, and how to make it the most resilient version of itself, so that when a cold's going around, you can walk around, you can go and nurse the person. You can bring them your chicken soup who's sick and put your arms around them and love them and give them your healing energy and not get sick because of resilience inside of the body. And that is what we learn. And yes, it takes us 12 weeks to learn that. If I can try and shorten the course a little bit, but what we did journeying together over a year was really profound, really beautiful. It was moving. When we move on to toxic load, what's beautiful is that we have this base framework. Gut health is the absolute base framework. It helps with everything. It helps with women in pregnancy. It helps with your child when they're born, understanding their gut health, understanding making them as resilient as you possibly can, understanding their food, understanding everything about the symphony of their body, their hormones, the way in which they work with the light of the sun, the night of the dark, circadian rhythms, etc. Then you can move on to toxic load, where we discuss the toxins in our life and how we work around them, not how we become a nun and never eat a hamburger again and never drink alcohol again for those people that drink alcohol, and never, have a fizzy drink or whatever it might be, but a deep understanding of what these things are and of the motives behind some of these companies and what is in their products, why we are greenwashed, why we are marketed to. Think about it. And we really start to understand how to build this haven inside of our 4 walls of our homes where we can be more resilient and where the toxic loads can be lifted. Our body is at peace. It is in rest and digest. The air is clean. The water that we are drinking is filtered. The food that we are eating is thought through. We use the power, the spiritual power of our own selves to infuse our food with healing, love, and energy. In London, I work in the food industry. I have a business in the food industry for 10 years. The way in which most takeaway food is being made now is in what's called a dark kitchen. It's just a whitewashed wall somewhere on a high street or a back street, and there are just people working with no windows, no light, no nothing. These dark kitchens are where all these takeaway foods are produced. There's no energy in there. There's no healing energy. And I'm not saying this for every place. There are homemade places that do beautiful foods, and use your discernment, use your discretion. But I'm saying 99% of the time, you are way better off with frying 2 eggs and putting them on a piece of sourdough with a bit of grass-fed butter than getting a takeout. But I want you to understand food. I want you to understand spiritually the energy of food, energetically the energy of food, and I want you to understand the impact of toxins on the body. And that is what we do in these 12 weeks. We look at what we're washing our clothes with. We're looking at what we putting on our skin. We look at women's makeup, men's hair products. We look at what we're exposing our children to. We look at stuff like light, because there is junk light and there is healing light. Junk light is just as detrimental to the body as junk food. Not enough people know about this. This is a kind of light that affects the well-being of the body and affects circadian rhythms. So you learn how to work with light in your home. You learn how to get your body in tune with circadian rhythms. You learn how to stop filtering the natural light that's coming in through your eyes. We learn about a myriad of different things in toxic load. And it is not about throwing out everything in your house and getting rid of scented candles and making a big change that seems completely out of your reach. It is simple, basic, and just clear little ways in which you can make small changes. And if you want to go down the road that I've gone down by having a home that is 100% toxin free, you can do that, but you don't have to do that, and you don't have to get there tomorrow either. It's just about inspiring you upon that journey, especially if you've got a child with a cough that always comes on at night and you can't seem to kick it, or you've got a sickly child, or within the family there's always flu, or something's always happening, or our home is extremely important that it is well protected from toxins that are not welcome, but also spiritually well protected. And the Bible speaks about that a lot, about the hedge of protection around the home. And I'll be bringing that in a little bit if anyone's interested, because I do also work with a lot of people that have that just don't feel right in their own homes, and there's a presence in their homes that they don't quite like, or they're not sure about. And that's something that we all need to be talking about. Not enough people are talking about that, but we really do start with the basics, which is like why you shouldn't have air fresheners, and why you shouldn't be running perfumes and stuff through your home, and why these chemicals and why those chemicals, and why yes this and why not that. And trust me, at the end of the day, you'll save a lot of money as well. That's been a big revelation with a lot of people on the mastermind. It's like, whoa, I don't spend any money anymore on all this rubbish. Used to go once a month, once every 3 months, and spend hundreds of pounds on cleaning products and all these things that you think you need, when in actual fact there's natural alternatives that do the job well. And don't get me wrong, if you need to bleach the toilet and occasionally do things here and there, it's actually, I said this a number of times to a lot of people. Tell me how you do anything, and that's how you do everything. Yeah. Tell me how you do anything, and that's how you do everything. So 90% of the time you do not need these things, but if 10% of the time you want to bleach all the toilets and use harsh chemicals to mop up this, that, and the next thing, go for it. But don't be doing that day in and day out, especially if you feel like you are sluggish in your body and there's toxic load taking its effect on you. Heavy metals, we will talk about heavy metals in foods, how I accumulated my heavy metals in my body. I will actually do a podcast on that. And if that's something that you want to hear more about, then you can just put heavy metals in the comments, because my pen's not working. And I'll do something on how I accumulated my heavy metals and how I got rid of them as well, which was a really beautiful, really empowering journey. And I've never felt more resilient after doing something like that. So I will share that. And finally, I'll run through trauma load. Trauma load is a very fascinating one. You can do everything in life to heal your gut, and you can be living in, the Garden of Eden in terms of how beautiful your home is and how perfect it is. It actually says in the Bible that in the Garden of Eden, if a seed fell, it would just blossom and grow. That's how energetically perfect it was there. Whereas here we have to work. The amount of work I've had to do to get seeds to grow in my allotment, the soil, I've had to mix it myself. I've had to learn. I've had to go on courses. I've had to, and I'm now growing pumpkins and herbs and avocados and pineapples. And, I say that I'm in the midst of it, but we did serve to a lovely group of people some of the potatoes that I'd grown, which were very blessed. So it's not easy. But the point is that even if you are living like that, but you are holding trauma in your life that you can't understand and you can't move past, I myself know this for myself, within my family, within everything, you will always struggle, because in times of stress, people will often say, but my son's eczema only flares when he's teething. Her eczema only flares when she's sick. Because when we get into times of struggle, when life becomes hard, when we are confused, when things are more difficult, these are the first things to give. So that's why I want you to understand where your pain is, and that there is a way for that pain to be moved through. And there are physical things that you can do, like body work and other things, but there are also spiritual things that you can do. And when I dive deeply into this in the mastermind, I will explain how there are things that you can do that are on the right path, and there are also things that you can do that are quite dangerous. And I know, because I did them myself and I reap the repercussions of them, that if you are delving into certain spiritual things without the right protections or without the right intentions, you can have dire consequences or difficult consequences, some that you might realize and some that you might not. But I will be talking a little bit about that in that trauma load quarter. So it is really important that you are sound and that you are covered and protected, and that you deal with your trauma in a guided way. Yeah, it's a kind of like if you said to a heroin addict, if a heroin addict said to themselves, or even someone that has used a lot of steroid cream, I've seen it, I'm never going to use this stuff again. You can't, because you will die from the detox effects, even with alcohol, of just stopping that thing called turkey. So you do need to move through your trauma in quite a designed way. And it sounds like it's something out of your reach. It's not at all. We talk about simple stuff like spinal alignment. I talk about a couple of courses that I did. I teach about the differences between manipulation of the spine, like chiropractic work, which is quite intense and strong, versus a gentle, more a method that's kind of akin to how you would work with an iPhone. You know, you'd never get your iPhone and kind of you stab on the keys. It's like a gentle touch. So a PIDS method, which I learned from an amazing woman here called Jose, who taught me about a gentle touch and with that sensory system of the body and how there's alignment in that. So there's a lot of physical body work that helps a lot with trauma, and we delve deeply into that. And then finally, we delve into what I call the fourth quarter, which is that spiritual pillar, that fourth pillar. And that might be for anyone who's looking for something greater than themselves. In that quarter, I will be discussing a lot, and I'll be discussing a fair amount of it here on this podcast, as to how I searched and I searched and I searched. And where I probably went the most wrong in my life was out of places of pain. Pain that I didn't understand sent me off searching. And some of the things I discovered were not great. And I will talk a little bit about that search and how spiritually you can be held up by a strong, strong pillar, what that looks like, what happened to me, and how that pillar formed in my life and culminated in this baptism, my rebirth in late last year in 2023. So that is my 3 Pillars Mastermind. It gives you a very in-depth feeling for what we're going to be looking at. It's not specifically for Christians. You will learn more if you're a Christian, but if you're fascinated to understand the biblical overlay of everything I teach, then you are so, so welcome to come and join. You can email hello@thekineticblueprint.com. Please leave all of your questions below. As I said, next week I'm going to be talking about my testimony, which is the first time I have spoken openly about my testimony. I will also be really delving into my relationship with God and how it's worked, and the encounters that I've had throughout the way, and the things that I've seen, and how only since having been baptized, even though I was christened in the church as a child, that have made a lot more sense to me. The peace that has come to me through being extremely confused about a number of things that I'd seen and experienced in my life. So I hope you would join me for that. Thank you so much. If there's anyone that you think would love to hear about the 3 Pillars Mastermind, please share this episode. And any questions, just keep them coming in. It's a pleasure. And God bless. And I'll chat to you on next week's episode for my testimony. Thank you.